Thank you for listening to the Allender Center Podcast. I'm Dr. Dan Allender.
And I'm Rachel Clinton Chen. We're fiercely committed to providing hope and healing to a fragmented world.
And restoration for the heart.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get this conversation started.
Well, it is a joy, always fun, to join my dear friends, Steve and Lisa Call, with my beloved wife, Becky. We are going to talk about bickering. Well, complaining, negativity, or so often what seems to happen when couples have certain energy differences that come in the context of how we handle routine activities in the house. So, yeah, this is a reflection on deep-rooted marriage. But Steve and Lisa, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's a compliment that the topic is bickering and you invited us, but we won't take it too personal.
Well, no, just a quick question. I mean, do you guys bicker?
Never.
You asked me that the other day, I think. You asked, do we bicker? My first response was, no, I don't think so. But then the more we...
But then all day long we've been bickering. So we were like, I guess we do.
We bickered this morning. We bickered last night. Like, oh, I guess it's way more familiar than we thought it was.
That's hilarious. And you did critique me using a word that you said came up in the 40s and 50s.
I did. I don't think I've heard the word in a while. So I don't know. Maybe it's just like I have to look at the origin or where it came from. But it's I guess how we would describe what was occurring for us last night. Like we had an incident where we got this pizza oven and we decided to make some pizzas outside, this outdoor pizza oven, and
this is no easy task.
It's no easy task, and it was just taking forever and making the crust and putting the sauce on.
And Steve's like, I just want it to be fun. How come this isn't
fun? I was hoping this would be fun.
I can't control if this is fun.
Why is this taking
hard work?
Why is this taking so long? And how come the crust isn't ready? And just all kinds of accusation, which I think is maybe the source of what bickering is.
Yeah.
It has this sort of accusatory tone to it.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's so accusatory. And yet, what I would say in most occasion, it's sort of light, fair contempt. We're not at the point of just an outright brawl, but it's just sort of that light sniping at one another. And it's a deal. But it all came up because of this article you brought.
Well, I love sociological numbers and percentages. And this was from the Journal of Marriage and Family in 2024. They took 3,000 couples and they found that moms handle 71% of the household tasks, including cleaning, scheduling, childcare, and other daily labor that requires a lot of mental effort. And then another 2020 study was University of Southern California, and they surveyed not as many women, but 322, and found that moms reported being responsible for 73% of all cognitive household labor and at 64% of all physical household labor. But taking out the garbage was the only one of 30 tasks in which fathers did more planning and execution.
That was painful when you brought that up. I'm like, yeah, I'm the garbage man here.
So the study also found cognitive labor was associated with women's depression, stress, burnout, overall mental health, and relationship functioning.
Well, how did you feel when you read that to me?
It's no surprise. I mean, it's not. But I think what I went to is, oh my gosh, our country basically has both parents working now, unlike when we entered the workforce. And that is really, really hard. And the other thing I went to was, man, if the man is not on the top of his game, I'm getting ahead of myself, at menopause and perimenopause, it's a big trouble because what you're going to talk about now as gray divorce.
We'll move in that. But again, how are the two of you responding to this? Does it fit? Like the first thing I did was, and that's just not true for us. You're not doing 73%, 71%. And we started going through, this is where bickering came up, bickering as to whether it has applicability to our relationship. And I would say you're not at 73, you're probably at 67. So just that, few percentage less.
We are now that the kids are out of the house. That's, excuse me?
I know. So again, how are the two of you responding to that?
What would you say?
I mean, I think we can resonate with that. And I think we both came from families that were like pretty traditional, and so in the roles, and so I think
in gender roles.
Yeah, in gender roles. So I think we didn't push back as much. Like I think it was, fine. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's not to say there weren't many things to bicker about. So I don't know. What would you say?
I think there's a little bit of resistance to being like what you just said, Dan, around percentages. Like, wait, I don't think it's that high. Like, is it really like that? Is that true for us? And if it is, what does that imply about our relational dynamic? And I think that's the hope of something like that is, what does that speak, or what does that say to you about your relationship, potentially? And maybe that's the invitation for listeners, is the invitation to reflect on what might that say? If that's actually true for you in your marriage, what might that say about your relationship? Is that where some of the tension lies? Is that where some of the bickering comes from? But I think for us, I wouldn't say so much traditional. I would say that at times there's one of us that bears a majority of the duties, if you will, the word that even the research used, duties and responsibilities. But I think that has ebbed and flowed over time, maybe more so since children have left the home. I think that's definitely true. More so, it was primarily Lisa. That 70%, I'd say, would really fit when our children were young. And the logistics and the planning, I think you bore a tremendous amount of responsibility around that, for sure.
Well, one of the elements when I went to read the article that Becky brought, one of the things that they're capturing is this notion of the mental load. It isn't just, who carries out the trash generally, or who does dishes. They're usually some kind of ritual that we almost all fall into. Yet the notion of mental load for many families, the idea that a woman's bearing more of the task of the interior of the home, the life of the children, and also working outside the home, you can see where it's just so obvious. The level of resentment would have to be something that has to be engaged and tended to. So I don't know if any couple's going to get to a pure, clear equity, 50-50. I'm not even sure that's a good goal. But where there is that disparity at that level, yeah, that is an issue. But even more so, as you put it, I think you're putting it in this way, do you have the capacity to address where does the life of the family come? How does the family go from going to bed at night to then getting up in the morning, to getting food ready, to getting kids out the door, to going shop? I mean, all the details that are required to make a family work when the disparity is that high and you're not engaging it, and not engaging it without resentment or quibbling, again, bickering, then that's going to linger over time. And that's part of like the residue of what I think comes to this category of gray divorce. Like we know in this country, couples who are 50 years of age and above used to be 1 out of 10 divorce. Now it's 1 out of 4. And you have to step back and say, even if you're not in that age frame, you're in your 30s, your 40s, you're not married, you need to begin to ask questions with that kind of sociological data. What in the world is going on to make a shift from 1 out of 10 to 1 out of 4.
Mm.
I want to get your response as to what you're seeing in the couples you work with, what you're seeing in terms of the larger realm of this level of what's going on, and is this part of the factor?
I think that's so fascinating because part of what maybe isn't as addressed as directly as it could be is that part of what happens in that age group is that there are less needs potentially because children are maybe a bit older, maybe they're, empty nesting. They're getting to the stage, I think, where, wait, who are you again? Whereas the function of being so busy early on in life actually plays a part in not addressing what needed to be addressed relationally. And so I think there's a link, a correlation for older couples where, oh, wait, we didn't address 20 years ago what we needed to. We were busy, we were distracted. The mental load that we're talking about, particularly for her, it's not that it's a distraction, it's that there isn't capacity. And I think that's part of what's happening for older couples is that very notion of we didn't address what we could have or needed to. And here we are in this stage of life, like, wait a minute, we're waking up to the reality of, oh, there's some residue, if you will, of what has not been addressed.
I love that because we don't even know what needs to be addressed until it's needing to be, we weren't, and I think as a woman, I didn't know much about menopause. And now there's so much more information that's available. My doctor said, you're thin, you exercise all the time, you've got lots of muscle, it won't be a problem. But we went away on a sabbatical and I had no estrogen and it became a big problem.
Oh, it was a big problem.
And then came back to the United States after being on a motorcycle and afraid I would fall off the face of the earth. By the way, menopause, one symptom can be loss of balance. No one told me that. So I went to 2 doctors, got on estrogen, and then was overblown with estrogen and got my shopping done at Nordstrom's. But my daughter, who's a nurse practitioner, said, we're going to the ER.
Oh, you didn't explain.
I had too much estrogen with 2 different doctors. Well, I had these streaks going up. And once it got towards my heart, she said, we're going. I'm like, oh, I didn't get the swimming suit. She's like, we're going, but all to say, then they just cut. I had no estrogen after having too much estrogen. And now the rules have changed again medically. And so I really think it's a problem. A lot of the situation of the Great Divorce is neither male nor female has a full understanding of the woman's body because of our health care. Women have never been given enough study, and that continues to be. So, if it's pretty easy if you know what's happening to your body and if your spouse understands it. And there's information out there now, but even not as much. There's more and more, but why not more now?
Mm-hmm.
So I really think for us, that coincided with when I was working on the streets with prostituted teens.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it showed up in our bedroom all sorts of ways without even understanding fully what was happening to my body.
Bickering. We were not cognizant, literally, of how through the loss of estrogen, there's also a profound decrease of oxytocin.
Everything in your body changes.
So the idea of oxytocin being that biochemical that allows attachment, connection, intimacy, as it decreases, your patience, your capacity to bear something of my own erratic activity became less and less. So you can see, as you put it, in such an important category. If you don't have knowledge and you don't have conversation, so much of our tensions get dissipated by just this sniping energy of anger. Anger becomes a way of diffusing what your body doesn't know you're bearing. So what do you, as you two hear that and engage it, because you are a number of years younger, does it fit? Does it connect to your own experience of making that transition into the gray years?
Well, I mean, I resonate with what Steve talked about, the functionality of when you're coping with building a family and you're busy and you're both doing your jobs and you don't have time or you don't have understanding to be able to even address what I might be feeling, what you might be feeling, how this might be interacting. And then as we move into this empty nest stage, I think for us, I think for a lot of women, all of a sudden, wait, the function's gone. I don't really need you. I can actually live a really happy life. I have options now. On the other hand, I have options now. I can.
You're saying that for you.
As a woman.
As a woman, yeah.
I think we have more options to have a really fulfilling life. And so if we don't have the capacity to engage the conversations and how there's been impact over the years. So I don't know. That's kind of the flip side too, I think, of maybe another reason why there's gray divorce. Like the function was to have this family and now we've got this family. So now what? Like we're disconnected. We haven't really, there hasn't been care. There hasn't been kindness. We've siloed. And so now I'm going to go do my own thing.
Yeah. I also think of it as like when we say the 1 out of 4 statistic, it's meant to maybe put up a yellow light and say, hey, caution, like let's pay attention. Like what's happening relationally between us, what's happening relationally around us. We were talking earlier around sometimes, even last night, I think this ongoing low-grade contempt, the way you described it, I thought was helpful, Dan, around bickering. It seems like that's connected really to this undercurrent of hurt, frustration, disappointment that hasn't really maybe been fully acknowledged or expressed. And I thought last night, Lisa, she did a wonderful job at actually being curious about, hey, what's going on for you? Like you seem a little agitated, you seem a little frustrated, and I didn't know what I was connected to. But I think therein lies the hope of if we can pay attention to some of this current dynamic around bickering, the frustration, maybe resentment, like what is that about? What is it connected to? And maybe that's the hope of this conversation as well is can we invite one another to be curious around what is the undercurrent? What is that connected to? Is it something yesterday? Is it something maybe connected to a decade ago? We often don't know.
Well, what did you discover with regard to the pizza oven?
Well,
a couple things.
A couple
really.
things, but I want to highlight 2 things in that. One is we don't often know in the moment. It took me the next day, this morning, to actually put words to what was I bothered by? What was I agitated about? Well, we were planning to have this.
Well, and also, let me just say, this isn't like a natural thing that I would do, but like over the years of practicing, noticing, and being aware that there are other things playing out, that there's wounding, that there's hurt, that there's, our stories are playing out. Like all of that was at play. And it kept me buoyed to staying in curiosity because
it's a good word.
Normally, I think like I would call bickering more like defensiveness because I think that's how it felt for many years for us. Is just defensiveness. Like, well, you did this. Well, you did that.
You slept in an hour. Yeah. You did this. You
used that one on me on vacation. I'm like, well,
why'd you have to bring that up?
I'm like, I'm not taking it. But anyway, it helped. I could feel that it kept me buoyed into curiosity, and I kept going. No, there's something. Like you're frustrated. Like this is frustrating that it's not fun. And I just stayed with that because we're both sort of in this stage of we're not going to work as hard anymore. Like we're tired of working so hard and we're just not committed to that. But we were practicing for a family get together coming up in a couple of days. So we're like, we're going to make these pizzas for all these people. And we're both going, I don't think so. This isn't going to work.
This isn't going to work.
And so there was some resentment there that Steve started to realize like, wait, why are we always doing all the work? Why are we hosting? Why are we doing this big production? And it's not even fun. So we did find that out. Also, your back was hurting and you realized, oh my gosh, when you have physical pain sometimes, or the broad spectrum of menopause, like you said, Becky, like things are happening in our bodies that are irritating us or bothering us or making us feel off balanced, or all of those things are playing into why we're responding in in a way that is less generous or whatever. Like it's happening. And so being connected to like, wow, let's be aware of what's happening in our bodies.
And this is really wonderful for us, you and Lisa, and because we have husbands who are therapists. We are husbands who are in the trenches with marriages, and we've had the opportunity to do story work through the Allender Center, 3 years of training. And so to know that even still we have trouble, but again, it's that conversation and it's that curiosity for the other with their story. And so I just am aware of how fortunate we are because of the work that we have had the privilege to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, 1 out of 4. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and it opens, let me just go back to that question of, so in finding that it's not going to work for this family gathering, what got triggered for you, Steve?
I think I was disappointed. I was frustrated. This sense of like, oh, I have to produce again in order for a relationship to occur. Particularly in my family, that's been true. And so I think there was the fighting the reality of that. I didn't want it to be true. I didn't want that to be true.
Mm-hmm.
That here I am again in this potential role. So I was frustrated more, but I don't even know a stronger word than that.
I mean, the feeling of being consumed.
Maybe consumed, taken from, something like that. And I think what bothered me about it was that it was bothering me. I think that's also what happens.
He kept saying, but I want it to be fun. Like, as if it's fun, then it doesn't count for being consumed because you're having fun.
Sure.
I was like, I'm sorry, but I can't produce fun right now.
But also like what we're talking about with our bodies. Like, I just don't want it to be true. Like that I have limitations or that something's happening physiologically or my back hurts or whatever that might be according to what we're experiencing. So I think that's also there. I just don't want it to be true. I want to be okay with this. And I wasn't, and I'm not. And I think sometimes that's part of the agitation, maybe another descriptor of what Bickering is. We just feel agitated. And what is it?
Or even that our bodies are aging. Like you're talking about all the different impact of how our bodies are aging. And so we don't even know how that's playing out. Like, I'm so frustrated that we can't have this intimacy that we want. Right. I'm so frustrated that, we can't keep up or whatever it is. You need to sleep in for an hour. Like, whatever our limitations are frustrating for us. And so you're holding that tension.
I want to go back to the pizza oven in a moment, but let me just add to, I think one of the things we've discovered this summer, we've had a great summer. And yet what we've noticed is we'll go off for a couple of days with one of our kids' families. And when we get back, it takes us so much longer to recover from having fun. So it isn't just hard times, but perhaps that's been true before, but we're much clearer about what our bodies can bear and what they can't. And in that, I've noticed that in that period of recuperation happens to be one of the things where we've been bickering more with just like little tension between one another. But you're opening the door to, in one sense, a bigger reality with the pizza oven. And I think that's where we go back to what we attempted to address, in the deep-rooted marriage.
Yeah.
If you don't engage your story,
Yeah.
so often these difficulties seem contextless. They seem in many ways like just petty interactions that have no real meaning. But when you begin to go, no, there's something going on with the pizza oven. Now, here's my data. I was with you when we were doing a marriage intensive at your glorious barn. And do you remember? I was watching you.
Yes.
Like you were focused, consumed, excited, watching the pizza crust, taking it out.
He had a mentor. He had
I had a partner.
He had a very good mentor named Ben doing the pizzas.
The caterer next to me.
Yes. And do you remember I mocked you? right?
Yes.
And he was having the time of his life. So like, that's his memory, right? That's his memory. Like, this is going to be great. I'm like, I am
fun.
Ben.
This is going to be fun.
Sorry.
What I not only underscore the issue of being used and consumed, but historically, you're not really fond of failure.
That's true. I'm not fond of something not going the way I hoped it would go. Like whether that's not catching pickleball, a particular fish in a particular river with a particular fly. But I think what you named and highlighted on our behalf for all of us, for the four of us, but also I think for all of those listening, is what you said, is if we don't engage our story, the contempt grows, it takes root. I think what is so important, though, to keep highlighting is more often than not, we just don't want it to be true. I just don't want my story to be playing out in this particular moment. That's what I was, I think, more agitated about. Was, here it is again. And I don't want that to be true. And I think that's the tension that our body holds sometimes that then is projected on to the other, which is what I was doing, was I was displacing it, giving it away, trying not to feel what I was feeling.
Yeah. There's this intersection between resentment and discouragement. If you think of discouragement is a loss of courage, a loss of capacity to engage what's true with honor and goodness. And so often when I feel resentful toward Becky, underneath it, as you put 10 minutes ago, I want to come back to, it's hurt. Just plain simple hurt. And that feels too vulnerable to own to myself, let alone to her. Because if she's already hurt me, bringing hurt is not going to feel like it's going to be handled well. And historically, I think you've been way, way, way better than most people in engaging my hurt. But because there have been enough failures, maybe 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, that's enough to be able to go, I don't want to do it again. So that harboring a sense of like, well, you don't get it. You don't see. You don't know what I'm going through. And then when Becky brings this article, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it may not be as true today as it was 10, 15 years ago. But that package of disappointment, hurt on your part, being played out even a decade or later, it's just important that we come back to that category of how do we address where there is disappointment, hurt, discouragement in a way that honors the reality of what we've experienced and yet looks at it in the larger story. How did the two of you do it with regard to the pizza oven?
How about your pizza oven? What's your pizza oven story?
Well, we could make that shift. You sure you want to defer? So,
well, I think as you were saying that, I was aware of what helps us to actually pay attention to the other's emotional energy. That's rather than interpreting it as like bickering or a defensive posture. Like Lisa has more. I don't know. Can I just say? I think more character. Like she has more kindness than I tend to hold around being curious around what's happening for me than I have for myself. And I think that's the key is, do we have a spouse? And can I imagine myself being the one that says, what's going on for you? We can't always make sense of what's happening in our own body and what we're experiencing. I think that's the beauty of marriage is I need help. I need help discerning what is happening for me. We need help from the other. So maybe that's part of this dialogue is what helped was Lisa was curious. Honestly, you said that earlier, Lisa, was what's going on. She didn't take it as, why are you being so rude? What's wrong with you?
Which is how I took it for about 25 to 30 years.
years.
So, we can't stress enough, like we've had so much interaction with each other's stories that literally, like I just remember when I realized that we had made each other's stories so vulnerable and we'd talked about them so many times that literally the defensiveness began to fall away. I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so different. And because the young parts that were wounded, the parts that hadn't been seen for so many years were finally being seen and tended to, that I don't know. I think it's just that hurt that's always underlying. But if you begin to tend to it, it's not screaming as loud and like there's noticing. And so that's when I feel like that the defensiveness in general begin to fall away when we begin to understand the truer story, the deeper story. And so now, yeah, the bickering will come up because we're trying to do this thing and we get frustrated, but then it's just more natural to go back to like, okay, something else is happening.
Yeah.
Something else is playing out. Like this isn't, I know you're not frustrated at me about this. Like it doesn't make sense. But before, I think it's just so easy to go there. And so
there would have been, in the past, there would have been a lot of judgment. Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you talking like that to me?
Or storming out of the room or like, forget it. I'm not doing this. There's so many other options. But as we've gotten more familiar with the pattern, like, oh, I see what's happening. It's just that aha.
Yeah. It's that being on the same team, I think is so important. And that's what knowing the story of the other is, and to help when the other is really in a bad place, to come alongside, again, our phrase, I'm not your enemy, or what's going on, is huge. We probably didn't see that modeled from our own families.
No.
And so this is not a small thing to start saying that and start stepping back.
Yeah. And when you see that picture, when you get that picture that this is related to his story, it's not about me now. So I'm not defensive now because I can see like, this isn't about me. But if we don't see that, we just keep making it about each other.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's so great. Like, I know that your dad and your brother, like, will you go talk to them? Is it worth it? Is I'm just aware of, because our parents aren't on the earth, but I see how this is hard for you. And I guess I have hope that you might, because you're a very gifted man with words and know how to do what you do, and you do it so well. Do you ever think of that? I'm just curious.
I do think of it. I think that's the risk. Is it worth the risk? In any like particular relational dynamic for my family, I'm so ambivalent around that. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth the risk. I don't know if it's worth it. There's a history around risk, and there's also a history around preservation. Like, I'm not giving any more access. You don't get any more access.
Well, and often family doesn't respond well anyway. So it's not always the answer to go back and make things better. Like, I think having the understanding of your spouse or having someone else that can understand what your story is can bring a lot of healing.
So you can just say, damn it.
Yeah.
Then you're like, damn it, the hell.
Well, that's
or
what
just I get angry at the other person and let them know.
Yeah. Well, because he wasn't connected to what he was like, I don't know. I kept saying that. But then when you became connected to it.
It's just time. I needed some time.
But was that helpful?
Like, it was.
So helpful. It's not like he's going to make resolve with those people or anything like that, but like just to have the understanding.
It's just not a therapy session, by the way.
I know, but to have the understanding, like, is sometimes
come on, is it everything? What
it is.
You do?
It's always therapeutic. I also want to highlight, though, like what you guys have modeled. Also, really want to put words to. I mean, you have modeled the notion of kindness, like what kindness looks like, sounds like, feels like between each other. That I think that's part of. For some couples, that's part of what is underdeveloped. Like, they don't necessarily have someone else or another couple maybe to not just, the word model is overrated, but the idea of what are the relationships around you that model something of this idea of less defensiveness, this posture of kindness, this posture of curiosity. I think, I mean, that goes without saying, but it needs to be said again, as we've learned that from you as well. Like, you guys have modeled that for us. And
the antithesis of bickering is where you have the presence of kindness, and you can tell the difference is just hot versus cold. It's that clear. And we were on a walk this morning, and Becky brought up something about my relationship with my biological father. And in that interaction, she could tell I didn't want to be in it. And it was so kind that you brought more data, and you said, is this not true? And is it something that you want to think through a little bit more? And I'm like, no. No. Let's just have a nice walk.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he's like, afterwards, after the uncomfortability of it all, he said, "That's what you need to do in a group. That's very good." But he always blesses his mom on his birthday and never did his dad. I'm like, well,
which given the complexity of my relationship with my mother, I think it's actually an amazing work of grace. But the reality of, well, what about blessing your dad? He was a part of the process of you coming to this earth.
50.
And I'm like, immediately, like I'm glazed over. The tension has increased. We're still walking, but I can feel like I wanted like double my pace to make sure that I outrun her. And all that happening in a matter of
1 second.
30 feet from the beginning of the continent to where we were. And this is again where none of us are making any kind of proclamation of how mature we are. But the imperative of, do you have a container? Do you have an ability not just to kind of contain the problem so it doesn't get worse, but a larger container that's able to hold the tension of that particular moment, to then be able for kindness, for curiosity, to be able to engage what's there. And I'm grateful that, you did. I thought you did a brilliant job of dealing with a difficult human being at that point.
Well, it took 48 years on your birthday to get to that 50-50 of your
Hey, that's
parents.
progress.
That's a beautiful
Wow.
imagery, though. Like the imagery that you could receive the pursuit, like you could receive Becky's pursuit with the sense of that she's for you, like the very thing that we were just talking about. Like Becky is for you, and you are for her. Like the reception, the receptivity to, oh, I might feel agitated and bothered, but I know at a core that Becky is for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that, shall we say, container of truth, that even in the interplay between one parenthesis and the other, there may be a lot of jagged dots and slashes and so on and so, but something's holding us together. And I fear that's what many couples, even in their early first 10, 15 years of marriage, are not looking to the reality that, as complex as their lives are, with young children, with two incomes, with paying for the extraordinary amounts of money that are spent for childcare, etc., the idea of, no, you don't want plaque to build up in your body, in your heart. And, I always come back to this category of flossing. Like, it's so small. It doesn't take that much time. But for decades, I just thought, no big deal. I go, well, I'll floss tomorrow. But with greater and greater clarity, what happens, not just to your teeth, but to your heart as a result of not flossing. Yeah, I'm a deep, committed, passionate flosser. Well, I feel like that's something that even in our near 50 years of being married, we're doing better. We're actually engaging the plaque that could, again, I don't think at our point that I'm fearing a gray divorce, but the reality is no one has a right to think their marriage is so good that there cannot be division. So honoring what's going on and how do we begin the conversation, even if it's difficult and painful, at least we can begin to do so with the container of, we are committed to one another and we want to grow. And I think that's one of the things that I feel such heartache for, when there's somebody listening now whose heart resonates with this, but has that sense their spouse does not. And then you are, at least, it's not quite what the scripture is speaking about, but where you have that sense you're unequally yoked. What do you say to that couple? What do you say to that person?
Well, what I want to say to ask you first is, if someone said, yeah, I want to floss, like, what does that mean? I mean, what does that even mean? How would you even start flossing?
Well, to know that plaque is going to kill you. I mean, literally in every marriage, there's danger. no matter how well you love or how distant you feel, there is a reality that there are forces, internal, external, seen and in the unseen world, that want your marriage to be empty.
And if for me, being married to Dan Allender really didn't. I mean, you're a good man and we have great love and great fun together. But I had to do my own work. And that's where the Allender Center, after being an intercessor for so many years, I started going through the different trainings. And that worked for me. Therapy might work for some people. I needed a witness. I needed a group. That changed my life. That changed who we are as a couple, because I finally needed to find me. Because so much had been about Dan's career and the children. And so it was, as our friend who was an intercessor with me said, isn't it unusual what helped you as your last name, which isn't really our last name. But that's another story. But it's just, I can't say enough that, and it's not like I did it and I don't have to keep working at it. There's another story. There's another group that needs to hear at times. So it's been such a rescue, that you had a vision that you had long ago, where people could not have to get a degree and come get help. Not even knowing they needed help.
Yeah. So we've been just one that's listening in the marriage is like, yes, I want to do this work. Like, you can do the work. You can do your own work. That's what you're saying. You can do your own story work. You can begin to see what are the things that are playing out in me, because they're probably bringing out the things in the other. And so that is a place to really start and to begin your own flossing, so to speak.
I just think about the reality that how many couples have we had when we've done this marriage intensive together? In your groups, our group, often we had one person very committed to being there and another person like, I got drugged to another conference or another whatever. And it's been intriguing that oftentimes the one who's most reluctant, at least in our experience, has been willing to get in ways that the person who's most aware and desirous, when they begin to get clarity about their own story and impact, have more the probability of kind of going, I didn't know this was going to cost me.
Yeah. I thought it was all your fault. What's happening?
That is such a helpful reminder, is that given the situation we were just talking about, because I think for many couples, the one that is more adamant around the work or the desire for work, it's usually connected to because they see the other as the problem. They see the other as there's something wrong with you. Therefore, we need help. And rather than, hey, I might be playing a part in the dynamic that is occurring between the two of us. So
totally.
I love that you brought up our
drag
intensity.
your spouse to the intensive.
Because we do have one spot. We have one spot in September remaining. So we'd love to have one of those couples listening join us for sure.
Oh, what fun that would be for somebody to listen and be able to go, I might be the reluctant, or I might actually be the excited, but not sure what it's going to be.
Hey, I know it's him, or I know it's her.
Yeah,
okay.
right.
Yeah, either way. Wow.
But again, we as much as we believe in what we do, I'd go back to this fundamental stance of, without knowing your story and the story of your spouse and how that interacts in the context of the small pizza ovens or walks where a comment comes up, it's without context, and therefore it's often either dismissed or creates even greater division, versus being the doorway to actually a deeper and richer exploration of what your heart was meant to know, where there was harm, but also where there is the way of redemption. So again, thank you guys. Thank you.
It's so fun to be with you guys. Thank you for the invitation and the conversation. It's always a delight to be with you.
Thank you again for joining us. We hope that the conversations we share with you here on the Allender Center Podcast have touched your heart and sparked a sense of hope within you. Our work at the Allender Center is fueled by the support of people like you. As a nonprofit organization housed within the Seattle School of Theology and Psychology, our mission is to boldly engage the impact of trauma and abuse on the human heart and to provide hope and healing to individuals, families, and communities. Your contributions directly contribute to making this vision a reality. If you feel moved to join us in this work, we invite you to consider making a one-time or monthly gift. Your donation, no matter the size, plays a significant role in bringing the hope of redemption and healing to so many. To give, simply visit theallendercenter.org/give. Once again, we extend our heartfelt gratitude for your support. Together, we can continue to bring hope and healing to those who need it. Thank you.
The Allender Center Podcast is produced by the Seattle School of Theology and Psychology.
If you'd like more information about the Allender Center, you can look at theallendercenter.org.